Ba 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 boom! Welcome to SportsBit Betting Insight today from SBRpicks.com. It is Monday, June 4th. I'm joined by Ian Cameron, Babana. We have no Pauly today. Pauly gets 1 day off every once in a while. We'll give him today off on Monday. He'll be back again as usual tomorrow. But today's show, absolutely loaded. All the bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books from last night. We're going to break down Caps and Knights game 4. We're going to take a deep dive into the 2018 Denver Broncos over under split line there, 7 or 7.5. We'll turn the shot clock on and talk about which manager is going to get fired next. We'll close out the show with our play of the day when it comes to hockey time. All right, let's start right here. Can the Caps take command? We'll talk about that in a few minutes, but we're going to begin with what happened yesterday. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. We'll start with the Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Golden State closed 11.5, 216. They win 122 to 103. Blow them out in the fourth quarter. 57% shooting for the Warriors. Steph Curry sets a three-point record, 9 of them in an NBA final game, besting Ray Allen's all-time mark. And so much for a J.R. Smith bounce back. The Cavs minus 29 through 2 games with J.R. Smith on the floor. Ian, it was Golden State when it mattered most yesterday. The Warriors turned it on, and not a great result for the books with Golden State in the over cashing in.
No doubt about it, Teddy. And we were looking at J.R. Smith, or at least for me going into game 2, Teddy, is J.R. Smith. What were we going to see out of him? One of the more colossal blunders you're ever going to see from a mental standpoint in an NBA Finals game. Totally forgetting score and situation. Maybe an opportunity for him to bounce back and show you something. Well, he showed you not a whole lot. 2 of 9, 5 points. Not very productive. The Cleveland defense sort of reverted back to that regular season defense. They gave up 122 points on 94 possessions, giving up 1.29 points per possession, this Cavs defense. And quite simply, Teddy, you're going to let Klay Thompson score 20. You're going to let Durant get to the lane and get to the paint without much resistance, and you're going to let Steph Curry basically bomb away from you with very little contesting from three-point range. Now, a couple of those were incredible shots, but a lot of it was not very good contesting and bad perimeter defense. When you allow that to happen, Teddy, you're not going to have a good chance to win or cover, and we saw that with Cleveland on display last night in Game 2.
Although, when we look at the Game 3 opener, the Warriors opened 5.5 on the road. The early money has come on the Cavs. That line, 4.5, just about everywhere as I'm looking right now. A handful of books still have 5 total, sitting at 2-17 right now. And you asked me about what the turning point for Game 2 was. I really thought it was the non-call on Steph Curry when Curry whacked into James as LeBron was going in for what would have been, in theory, an uncontested dunk. There was a no call. Then there was a technical foul on Ty Lue, of all guys. Ty Lue barely says anything to the refs. It seemed that after that, whatever momentum the Cavs had was pretty much gone. Golden State went on a run immediately after, and it was pretty much garbage time for most of the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I find it funny, Teddy. All the season we look at Cleveland, they get every call. Ty Lue is never ever upset. Now all of a sudden in 2 games, I don't think I've seen him as upset in 3 years as I've seen him in these last 2 games here in this series. You see LeBron James getting curt with the reporters the other night, saying, leave my teammate alone. They were trying to goad him into making a remark about J.R. Smith. He says, be better tomorrow. Then you got Steve Kerr last night giving it back a little to LeBron, a little poke the bear thing where he says, you guys were a lot better today. In his post-game press conferences talking about the reporters. So a little bit of a verbal head game going on with Steve Kerr, a little jab back at LeBron for his little walk out of the press conference with his little man purse at the end of Game 1. So things getting a little bit interesting, even though off the court, although on the court, 2-0 series lead, Golden State in complete control. We'll see if they've got that mindset to put their foot down and bury Cleveland as the scene shifts back to Quicken Loans Arena on Wednesday night.
It sure does. Bad beats. Well, I don't know if there were any really brutal beats yesterday. There's certainly a couple of unders worth talking about. Let's start in Detroit. The Tigers and Jays, you bet the first 5 under, you had no problem. It was nothing after 5 innings. If you bet the full game under, well, it got to 9 by the top of the 8th. Neither bullpen got the job done. Toronto snaps their skid and beats Detroit. The game goes over the total.
Yeah, I mean, for Toronto, they finally got a good start out of Aaron Sanchez. I mean, really all the damage was done off that Detroit bullpen, which a lot of teams tend to do damage against that Tigers pen. It's been very hit or miss. We know the Jays pen has been a little bit spotty. They gave up a few runs late in that game, and all of a sudden, what was a 0-0 game up until midway through that baseball game just exploded with a couple of pens that, quite simply, Teddy couldn't put the fire out.
And this is another game. It doesn't qualify as a bad beat. It really doesn't. The Reds Padres under 7.5, and they ended up with 9. But it was kind of a bad beat. If you watch the game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Since he had Luis Castillo on the hill, the guy was unhittable for 4 innings. He got into one jam and then gave up one well-hit ball, and it turned out to be a grand slam. And then a pair of solo shots in the 8th, one for each team, sends the game over 7.5. Reds Padres under. A tough beat. Certainly not a wrong side.
Yeah, I mean, Luis Castillo is a guy that's turned things around at least to some extent. I mean, he had a rough April. He just couldn't get anybody out that first month of the season, but we've seen him pitch a little bit better as of late. We know Tyson Ross historically, Petco Park's been a good place for him to be pitching in, and he delivered a pretty solid effort for the most part, but the grand slam off Castillo in that 5th inning was also pivotal for this game, ending up finding its way over the total. How about the bad beat, too, if you had Cincinnati first 5 innings? My goodness. I mean, San Diego just pulls that 5-inning bet out of their hat with that grand slam, turning a 2-0 Padres deficit into a 4-2 Padres lead. If you had Reds 5th inning or first 5 innings line, that's pretty darn tough to lose that one.
No doubt, but Ian, you're allowed to say ass here. You can say they pulled it out of their ass. We're not on terrestrial radio, of course. Bad bets from yesterday. One worth talking about, the Pirates. There was a bunch of money coming on Pittsburgh yesterday. They closed only as short dogs. Waka shut them out. Michael Waka at home has been dominant. 5-0 St. Louis. Money for the Pirates. That was a bad bet. And one result worth talking about, bad for the books. We saw over steam in every game at Coors Field over the weekend. The Rockies and the Dodgers, 19 runs, 16 runs, 17 runs in the 3-game set. Books got pounded with over money in all 3 of those ball games.
Yeah, and some of that on Sunday was mine, Teddy. I gave a SBR Play of the Day video, not to toot our own horn, but we liked over 11.5 Dodgers and Rockies on Sunday with Alex Wood against Chad Bettis. I'm not a Bettis guy. Woods had a terrible track record at Coors Field, 8.18 ERA going into yesterday. Didn't get any better with that horrible result as Colorado absolutely pounded him early in that baseball game, and pretty much a no-sweat winner if you had the over, as that one flies over. Over bettors cashing tickets left and right, as you mentioned, all weekend long at Coors Field. Pitching just not very good, starting or bullpen, to be that frank with you, on either side throughout that series.
Worth noting, though, the Dodgers lineup that hadn't hit is starting to hit right about now. Let's take a look at the chat. Let's see. What do we got? Tomarino Tomar. Over under on the tons of hair gel Ian has in his hair. Over under 5.5 tons. What are you taking, Ian?
It's actually not a bad, slightly over. I'd still take over. Yeah. This thing is like a stiff metal board. It doesn't move.
That's fair enough. Sean Robertson, Teddy, any insight on college baseball regionals? I've been balls to the wall with it since May, capping and looking over my many, many notes on most regional teams, if not all. Sean, I cannot help you. I have not spent 1 minute looking at college baseball regionals. If you've been working at it since May, you don't need my help, dude. You don't need my help at all. Use your research. Make some good bets. Ian, have you looked at college baseball at all?
No, but I'm going to relate it to another sport that I do very well in that just happens to be starting in a week and a half from now, the CFL. You know, that is a periphery sport, but I put my time in, I put my effort into it. We get great coverage of the league here, and we have positive expectation wagers, as Teddy likes to say, on a weekly basis, because I've just got that knowledge that I feel is stronger for myself over what the odds makers know. If you feel that way about the College World Series, that you have an edge that you might realize, and you don't feel the odds makers have properly priced it into their numbers, well, then by all means, bet it and try to win with it. That is what is great about sports betting. You don't have to stick to the major sports. You can go to sports that are peripheral sports where if you feel you have an edge, attack it and try to make profits that way.
And that's the truth of it. If you put the work in, you know, if you've been researching this since May, bet what you know. The odds makers have not been researching this since May. That is a chance for you to have a legitimate edge. Let's see what else we got. Justin Searcy. I think people believe that if the Cavs win a game, they think this will be the one. I agree with that assessment, and we've seen the 0-2 teams returning home for Game 3 attract a fair bit of first half betting action. That's certainly the case for the game as well. The market's moving towards Cleveland already in early betting
and worth
action.
mentioning,
Bill
Teddy,
Butler.
they're starting to. Now, I was just going to jump in and say they're starting to adjust for that first quarter, first half thing with the home team down 0-2. I mean, you're not getting that same bargain. You're not getting that same reasonable price point. I think that you might have gotten early in the season, last year in the playoffs, 2 years ago in the playoffs. So you got to be careful. I think the value is starting to decay a little bit with those first quarter, first half bets for the 0-2 team at home.
A little bit more from the chat right here. Bill Buttlicker. Teddy Covers, have you ever been in a fist fight? If so, did you bury him? Love the show. Look at me, dude. I'm like 150 pounds dripping wet. Yes, when I was a kid, I was a brawler. I have not been in a brawl in like 30-something years. It's been a long time. I'd probably say, maybe, I think I got into a fight like my freshman year at Michigan. And that's probably it. So it's been a while. Did I kick his ass? I'll tell you this. I fought like I had no chance, which meant that I would bite, I would scratch, I would do anything. I won a couple of fights. I lost a couple of fights. I was not a great fighter.
Let's just put it this way. Teddy and I are not candidates for Dana White to call us and offer us a UFC contract. Let's put it.
Yeah. And me versus Ian, pick 'em. Actually, you're probably chalk, Ian, because I smoke too much. One last one that we'll talk about right now. Boy, we're getting a lot of stuff. Chip Player. It's got to be Ian. Great call. Game 2 Stanley Cup. I didn't have the balls play under first and a half period. Just pounded that over 1.5 second period. Good stuff. We will talk Stanley Cup Game 3 right now. Let's do it. Big game breakdown. The Washington Capitals minus 130. Total 5.5. Under minus a quarter against the Vegas Golden Knights. And look, it's been Holtby. Certainly, and the Caps defense over the last 2 games. You see the save from Holtby there that everyone's still talking about a week later. This is an interesting scenario for Vegas, Ian. They haven't lost back-to-back games in the playoffs all postseason. Now they're facing this type of adversity for the very first time.
They are. And they have been a team that I have said repeatedly on multiple occasions in terms of questioning their ability to respond. I rarely ever have done that. And I thought Saturday night would be a good response from the Vegas Golden Knights. But to me, it was not so much what they didn't do, it was what Washington did defensively. It was clog up the neutral zone, take away the middle of the ice, make it impossible to get pucks cleanly through the middle of the ice, through that neutral zone, make it a quagmire, make it just basically quicksand, and make it impossible for Vegas to get transition opportunities through the middle of the ice. And Washington did that expertly. In game number 3, in that 3-1 victory against the Golden Knights. Braden Holtby, again, was very, very good in net. And to be honest, the last couple of games, he's just been ever so slightly better than Marc-Andre Fleury. It's not like Fleury's been terrible. In fact, Fleury made a phenomenal save early in game 1. But Braden Holtby's been the shining piece in net for the Washington Capitals, and most of Washington's secondary scoring options have come through for them. That's not been the case for the Vegas Golden Knights. They're looking for more. Even their top line, Riley Smith, Jonathan Marchessault, and William Karlsson, who they've counted on for offense, it's not necessarily been there consistently for them, but really it was the James Neal line that was really had a rough night in game number 3. You're looking for guys like that to bounce back. I mean, a great quote from James Neal saying, it's unacceptable the way we played, almost like a little vow that he's making that they are going to come back, be better as a line, be better as a team tonight, and win this game. I'd expect the Golden Knights to bring a much better effort, and I think an offensive effort is going to be the focus, Teddy. I think they're going to be looking to make some changes offensively going into this game 4 tonight.
Well, I mean, James Neal quote right here, it's been said all year. We know what we have in this room, the locker room, and we stick together. We've got each other. We'll pick each other up, focus on the next one. We'll have our best game of the year and tie it up. So certainly we're not seeing a lot of negativity from the quotes coming out of the Vegas locker room, not even a little bit, despite the fact that this is their first time they've lost back-to-back games all postseason. But You nailed it when you talked about the neutral zone. And I don't know anything about hockey strategy, but the fact that that the Caps have been clogging up the neutral zone and making it difficult for Vegas to get their opportunities. Caps defenseman Matt Niskinson. How do you pronounce his name? Niskanen. Quote,
Niskanen, there you go.
Yeah, Niskanen, thank you. Offensive teams have certain tendencies, certain routes that they take through the neutral zone, plays they might like to make. So if you can be on top of them, turn over some pucks, stifle them, make it hard for them to gain entry with possession, that frustrates skilled players.
Yeah, I think Vegas is going to make some kind of adjustments. I really do. I don't think this lineup is going to be the same. I could see Alex Tuch moving up to the second line. I never agreed with David Perron being on that second line to begin with for Vegas. He has not done anything in the postseason offensively. At least with Alex Tuch, you've gotten some production from him. He's got some goals. He's had some assists. A lot of them have been at home more than on the road, but I do think Alex Tuch going up to that second line is a move that should happen. Do we see maybe a Thomas Tatar come into the lineup? This is a guy that they got from the Detroit Red Wings at the trade deadline. It's a guy that's proven in the past that he can score goals for you as a talented offensive player. Might be time to take some of these guys like a Cody Eakin or a Carpenter out of there because they're not giving you much offensively. I really think this is a concerted effort on Gerard Gallant's part, guy that's made great adjustments all season, to try to put a lineup on the ice tonight that is going to give Vegas a much better chance at scoring goals and producing offensively because he knows that's where they've got to get better at. Certainly 2 goals in the last 3 games, not nearly good enough. 3 goals in the last 2 games, rather, not nearly good enough for the Golden Knights if they're going to get back into this series.
Yeah, well, 2 goals in the last 3 games wouldn't have been any better than 3 goals in the last 2 games. Either way, the Knights 0-2 in those contests since that wild 6-4 opener. I thought this quote from Gerard Gallant is worth noting here. Quote, in the 3 games, we haven't been good enough. If we don't step up our game, the same result's going to happen tomorrow night. So we'll see what we're made of. We'll get back to this game when it comes to play of the day time. Let's check that chat one more time real quick right here. Grabaka Max. Ted has a nasty job. I don't think I have a nasty job. I think it's pretty easy. I get to talk sports about games that I'm interested in and do it with friends and have positive comments coming in the chat. So I don't think my job's nasty at all. Well, I'm working with Pauly, Ian, by myself. It's all good. I appreciate all of your comments. Guan White. Everyone thought Waka was due from repression. Waka, Waka, Waka. Every time I think of him, I think of Pac-Man. What do you think of Michael Waka? Anything to be watching him moving forward for St. Louis now that he's healthy again? When he's healthy, Waka has certainly shown ace-level potential.
Yes, he's been excellent. I remember betting against him a couple times earlier this season when things didn't look like the train was not quite on the tracks for him. That's not the case now. He's been brilliant. He's been excellent. We know he's always been a good home ballpark pitcher. They're in St. Louis at Busch Stadium. But even on the road, his outings recently have been pretty solid for Michael Waka. Definitely a guy that he's turned the corner for me. Definitely not looking to bet against him at any point. I'm probably not going to jump in and monitor or bet on either, but it's a guy to monitor and a guy that I think right now, is in good form. Not a guy that I'll be looking to step in front of currently at this point.
Yeah, I just got we got Adam Lastman talking about the Tigers. Tigers over. I live 30 minutes from Detroit. It's very windy here, sunny also. Appreciate the info from Adam Lastman outside of Detroit. Sean Robertson was just looking for an opinion and hit an 18 parlay over the weekend, $50 for 2,400. Kudos. Good for you. Straight bet. Make more money that way over the long term. All right, let's get into it. It is deep dive time. We'll answer the chat once more before this show is through, but let's go and do our deep dive right here, right now. The 2018 Denver Broncos. We kind of have a split line with Denver. You can bet over 7 with heavy juice to the over, or you can bet 7.5, pretty close to pick 'em. So I don't even know what I graphic it. I might have graphic it 7 or 7.5. You can find either one depending on what you're looking for. Obviously, if you're betting under, you want under 7.5. If you're betting over, you probably want over 7. 50 cents worth of juice equates to approximately half a win. Hence, you can figure out where the best value is as you shop around for your wager. So this is a team line 7.5 this year. Last year, they were 5-11, an unmitigated and complete disaster. Vance Joseph survived for a second season, and I give John Elway credit for doing that. If you pick your guy, you don't bail on him after one season when you had no quarterback and no offensive line. Offense coordinator Bill Musgrave will now have a full offseason to install his offense. He took over from Mike McCoy mid-season last year for a squad that, again, 5-11 straight up, 4-11-1 against the spread, 8-8 over under. What was wrong with them? Look, they were middle of the pack in offense. They were middle of the pack in defense. They were actually better than average against pass defense. But the issue, 17 takeaways, 34 giveaways, a minus 17 turnover margin. That was second worst in the NFL, and you didn't want to be the worst team in the NFL. That was Cleveland. Pass defense still in the top 10, but the pass rush wasn't there. Number 22 in sacks, hence the lack of turnovers created. And the offense, how do we say it, Ian? It was a disaster from day one. They rallied back. Remember that Monday Night Football game against the Chargers week 1 where they rallied from behind to win? That was like the highlight of the season for that Denver offense. It wasn't pretty at any point.
No, it wasn't. And offense was definitely at fault. And you're seeing quotes from the Denver Broncos players that they're happy, they're at ease, that they finally got their number one quarterback. There's not a guessing game. There's not is it Simeon? Is it a Paxton Lynch? Is it some guy they find off the street and throw in there? No, it's Case Keenum that's going to be their quarterback this season. My question going into this season is Case Keenum, remember, didn't really do anything of significance with the Rams. Didn't really perform with any sort of significance or productivity with the Texans. All of a sudden ends up in Minnesota, gets the opportunity to be the starting quarterback, and he was terrific, down the stretch. There's no question about that until, of course, the NFC Championship game against the Eagles, but the whole team was bad in that game. Was Case Keenum's performance last year with the Vikings, was it a product of him finally finding his way, being a late bloomer as a number one quarterback in this league, or was he just on the right team at the right time? Minnesota's got an elite head coach in Mike Zimmer, an elite defense, an upgraded offensive line going into last season. Keenum didn't have to do too much, didn't have to outscore the opponent every single week. Just do enough, don't make the mistakes, let the defense take care of the rest. Much different situation here in Denver. You have a bad offensive line, or at least a subpar offensive line. Pro Football Focus ranked them 23rd offensive line last year, second most sacks allowed in the NFL last year, fourth most quarterback pressures allowed last season by this Denver offensive line. You've got a running back core that is totally and completely, utterly unproven going into this season. Devontae Booker was injured last year. Royce Freeman and D'Angelo Harrison behind him, two unproven commodities. You got wide receivers that, at least in Emmanuel Sanders' case, he's getting a little longer in the tooth now, an older player. So there's question marks about the pieces around this Denver offense to put Case Keenum in a position to succeed to the best of his ability. I like Musgrove a lot. I think he's a good offensive coordinator, but there's still a jury out type of thing going on for me here with Case Keenum and his ability to succeed in Denver.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that, but I do look at the Broncos' skill position and say this team's okay. Keenum will be better than Paxton. A bad Keenum will be better than Paxton Lynch. It'll be better than Osweiler was 2 years ago. I mean, it's been a bad situation for Denver at QB over the last couple of years. Simeon was, whatever. God-awful quarterback play. Emmanuel Sanders, great quote. I went out to the team store and I saw Case Keenum's jersey. I was like, thank God I don't have to deal with that again. Case is our guy. So Keenum can only be an upgrade. The question is how much of an upgrade he's going to be. He may only be a minor upgrade, and Denver's offense may still not work. There are still questions about the offensive line for Denver. But Keenum is an upgrade over whatever they had, certainly from a confidence standpoint. This is a guy that coached, that quarterbacked the team to the NFC Championship game last year, and Denver didn't have anything resembling a quarterback that could quarterback them to a championship game a season ago. Defensively, there are some issues with Denver. And again, this defense declined somewhat last year. They shipped out Aqib Talib in the offseason. But you look at what they brought in. You bring in Bradley Chubb, the number one draft choice out of North Carolina State. I love the third-round pick, Isaac Yiadom out of BC at the cornerback position. You bring in Sua Cravens at safety, and they still have Chris Harris and Bradley Roby as elite-level cornerbacks. Not to mention, they brought in Jermaine Brock. They got Clinton McDonald on the defensive line. This defense added a fair bit of talent. And you throw in draft choices again. We talked about Chubb at the top and then Yiadom in the third round. They also got Cortland Sutton out of SMU, who has potential to be an impact player, and Royce Freeman, as you mentioned, a running back. I don't worry about the young RBs. I think they drafted very, very well. And I think Denver, coming into the campaign, looks a good notch or two better than they did a season ago. But schedule-wise, this is where Denver is kind of interesting. The AFC West faces against the NFC West and the AFC North. So there's not a ton of travel for the Broncos. They do have to travel back east to face the Jets, and Houston comes to Denver. That's their 2 extra games. But the Broncos, schedule-wise, AFC West as a whole, not a particularly tough division. And Denver's schedule looks to me, Ian, like they have a chance at least to get back into the mix when it comes to postseason contention.
It comes down to Keenum for me, and I've said that right now in the chat. I mean, to me, can he show that Minnesota was not a blip, was not a one-off? He's ready to be a number 1 quarterback, ready to succeed. Hopefully the Denver offensive line is better. That was a problem last year. Hopefully the skill position talent gets strengthened. Sutton can come in, and as you mentioned, Teddy, and make an impact so that one of these running backs can step up. The defense is going to be very good, and there is question marks outside this division. We know the LA Chargers. What are you going to get out of them for a full season? Injuries always seem to bite them. Kansas City turn into a new quarterback. The Oakland Raiders, is John Gruden ready to turn back the clock and all of a sudden show that he can lead this team to prominence again? Question marks all over the division. So in that regard, maybe there is a door open for Denver.
There may well be. Let's look at the chat one more time real quick right here. Boy, we got a bunch. Let's see. McGoxter seems to have a bunch of stuff on Denver. He says that covering tight ends in the middle of the field has been an issue for them in the past. We need some RB contribution this year, guy that can take the load off of Keenum. I agree with both of those assessments, no question. But Denver was a 5-11 team last year. I think they'll be better than 5-11 this year. If I'm betting the Broncos, I can only look at Denver over the total. What else we got? We got so much. I appreciate all the chat today, and I'm sorry that we haven't been able to get to all of them. But let's turn the shot clock on, Ian. Get to it. The next MLB manager to get fired. Brian Price was number 1. Ian, who do we got for number 2?
I'm going to keep the local scene intact here. Of course, I'm up here in Canada. We're going to stay local with the Toronto Blue Jays and say I think John Gibbons, who's affectionately known as Gibby around these parts, could be the next manager gone. I mean, all right, they had a series avoiding sweep at Detroit that snapped a 5-game losing streak. But still, this is a team in Toronto here that is 10-21. In their last 31 games since the beginning of May. They've been on a downward spiral. The starting pitching was viewed as the strength of this ball club coming into the season. It's been a massive problem. The team's ranked 24th in team ERA. They've had Josh Donaldson in a contract year in and out of the DL. Marcus Stroman now on the DL has struggled. Aaron Sanchez has been disappointing prior to finally putting a good start on the board yesterday. You've had domestic violence allegations against closer Roberto Osuna that have taken him away from this team and left a huge void for the Blue Jays and their very depleted bullpen to have to fill. There's some issues right now with Toronto, and let's keep in mind, Gibbons was not a hire by this current management team of Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro. This was an inherited manager from the Alex Anthopoulos days. I think Toronto might take a chance to try to get one of their own guys in there, Atkins and Shapiro. So I'll say Gibbons. Rick Renneria, honorable mention, Chicago White Sox. He's going to be out of there, I think, as well.
Ian, you're taking lessons from Pauly on the shot clock, man. That clock is ticking. 30 seconds. Let's go. My choice, Buck Showalter. He's the obvious choice to be the next manager fired because he's managing the worst team in baseball right now. No team's underachieving. I mean, not that Baltimore was expected to be good, but I think the Orioles brain trust thought they were going to be better than they are. They've given Showalter a lot of leeway, and I don't blame Showalter for what's going on in Baltimore. He inherited a bad roster, and he's managed it fairly well. But when you're in position where you're playing 300 baseball, you're not going to last much longer. Buck Showalter's my call to be the next manager to get canned in MLB. Play of the daytime. Ian, you want to give it or you want me to give it? We're talking NHL Game 4 tonight, Vegas and Washington.
Yeah, regarding the shot clock, those that know me well know I can easily turn 30 seconds into 30 minutes. So there you go. We got Vegas Golden Knights here, plus 115 as play of the day. Look, I'm going down with this ship, folks. I mean, I said Vegas was going to win this series before it started. I think they're going to see adjustments. You can count on one hand how many times this team has lost 3 games in a row this season. That's 3 times. I think they're going to make adjustments. I like the quotes coming from the dressing room. They're motivated. They're focused. It's not frustration. It's not this series is over. This team's going to go down swinging. And I think you get Vegas's best. Hopefully it's enough for a win. I think it will be. Let's take the Vegas Golden Knights plus 115 as the Sportsbet play of the day for Monday, June 4th.
Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate your time. Really appreciate all the comments in the chat. Pauly will be back tomorrow. We'll break down more AFC West. We'll take a look. Geez, I don't even know what we're going to take a look at tomorrow. We'll figure it out. Be sure to tune in right here on Sportsbet, your sports central for gamblers on SBRpicks.com. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the games and good luck.
Thanks, everyone.